Hi everyone, I'm going to go ahead and record the lesson for today's class. It's 1:25. If we are able to get in, I will be in there. But in the meantime, you can have some instructional time. Today we were going to talk about the Baroque period in music. It lasted from 1600 to 1750. Last week we talked about the medieval era. And just like last week, we will describe the Baroque music, musicians of this era, and the instruments of this time. That's a recorder that you see on the screen. Our introduction question would have been Vivaldi's Spring Concerto, but if I leave to go click on that, then I lose my screencast, so we'll have to listen to that another time. What does the word Baroque mean? This era, everything was really highly decorative. And they wouldn't just have an arm of a chair or a leg of a chair. It would be all kinds of flowers and things and wood carves around the legs and the arms of chairs. Things were very intricate and highly decorative. The word Baroque was borrowed from architecture to describe the elaborate music of the day. Baroque music is full of confidence and very complicated. Music of the Baroque period is complicated. It's like trying to listen to 4 or 5 people all talking all at the same time. Musicians of the day made up music as they played it, and that is called improvising, and that's something we'll learn about when we study jazz. But they make it up as they go along, and it's called improvising. It lets the performer show off. Another word we talked about in here in art was patrons. A patron of the art is somebody who supports an artist, hires a musician to compose maybe a symphony for a big party or a ball, or they hire an artist to make their portrait. The people that hired them and commissioned the artists were called patrons of the arts, and they were usually kings, queens, dukes, or wealthy business people. What should you know about the Baroque period? Well, there were Baroque instruments, Baroque composers, scientific discoveries, and the connection to the U.S. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of these things. Some common Baroque instruments: the harpsichord, the organ, the recorder, and the lute that we talked about last week. I will put a link in for you so that you're able to go listen to these instruments. It's called Classics for Kids. And if you click on instruments families, you can find them but from the family. So example, the harpsichord would be a keyboard family. It was similar to the piano. The strings were played by plucking rather than hammering. It lost popularity when the pianoforte was invented, and I'll let you go to that website on your own and click on harpsichord. Another one would be the organ. The organ is really a cool instrument. You hear it a lot in scary movies. It's actually a keyboard wind instrument, and there's all these pedals at the performer's feet, as well as a couple layers of keys. So it's not just one line of keys. There's several different keys and pulls and stops and feet pedals. When the organist plays and presses on those pedals on his feet and things, it pushes the air out through the pipes, and those little tiny slits send out the sound. The longer the pipe, the lower the pitch, just like any other instrument. The bigger the pitch, the lower the sound. And then we have the recorder. You might have played this in elementary school. It's a beautiful little instrument. It's kind of sounds like the flute, but it's played by blowing into it, whereas the flute is played by blowing across it. You can see there's also bass, alto, tenor, piccolo recorders. They range in many sizes. The lute was another instrument we talked about last week. It was very popular in the medieval, Renaissance, and Baroque periods. It was probably played more than the piano and the guitar is today, and that is because of the extremely wide repertoire and to the magical sound. The lute is one of the most charming musical instruments that has ever existed. The clip for the Baroque era is in Brain Honey. You don't need to send me anything about that. And then some composers we were going to talk about was J.S. Bach and Vivaldi. Vivaldi is also known as the Red Priest. J.S. Bach was the son of Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, or C.P.E. Bach. He was a member of a large well, CPE had several children, a lot of children, like 17, and one of them was J.S. Bach. All of his children were very musical, but J.S. especially. His favorite instrument was the organ, and they actually marked the end of the Baroque period by his death in 1750. George Frederick Handel was born in Germany, studied music in Italy, and lived many years in England. He's known for his vocal works. Unlike Beethoven, who went deaf, Handel went blind late in life. Handel's the one who composed the Messiah, and that is the piece that a lot of people play and go down to see and sing along with during the holiday. They'll sing the Alleluia, Hallelujah. They'll sing that a lot. And when they sing that, everybody stands up. And that's because when that was performed, the king stood up when it was first performed. He stood up during the Alleluia chorus. And from then on, everybody stands up when the Alleluia chorus is played. Next is Antonio Vivaldi. He was known as the Red Priest because he had this bright red hair, although they wore wigs back then, but underneath that was bright red hair. He was the son of a professional violinist. He was a Catholic priest, and he composed the four seasons: spring, summer, winter, fall. Hopefully you'll get to listen to those sooner or later. They use them in commercials, spring especially. I have another clip for you on Bach. You don't need to send me anything about that. That is in Brain Honey. Some things that people were learning about back then. People were starting to explore. The scientists like Galileo and Newton were unlocking the secrets of the universe. They invented the telescope and the microscope. Also, the first permanent colony is formed in Jamestown, Virginia. It was 1607. The first African slaves were brought to British America, and that was in 1619. And 20 young women were tried and killed for witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. And George Washington was born as a little baby boy in Virginia in 1732. I think for homework, I will ask you to send me the answer to the exit ticket, who was known as the Red Priest. And I am not assigning anything else other than that, so you don't need to send it to me in a note. I'll put it in to Brain Honey as a short quiz. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to jump out now and make sure, hopefully class will have been already uploaded.